Cooper caught it somehow.
The Cowboys OT, presented by the Texas Lottery, is brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Sleep Number. The Sleep Number 360 smart bed helps everyone from parents to pros improve their performance through quality sleep. Only at a Sleep Number store. NFL Game Pass. You'll never miss a game again. Enjoy full access to coaches' film and game replays from Week 1 to the Super Bowl. Subscribe at DallasCowboys.com/Game Pass. And by the Texas Lottery. Play the Dallas Cowboys scratch ticket today. It's your ticket for a chance to win big.
Final score from Washington and Landover, Maryland. Dallas Cowboys fall 25-3 in an NFC East showdown with the Washington football team. They're on the wrong side of some Week 7 capital punishment as the Cowboys blown out against their division rival. Welcome in to Cowboys OT from the Star in Frisco. Kyle Youmans, everybody, alongside the man who came up with that statement, Mr. Nate Newton.
Yes, sir.
And Isaiah Stanback. And Nathan, whenever you came up with that statement, it was the Cowboys going to D.C. to deliver some capital punishment. That wasn't the case today.
No, that wasn't the case today. We kind of fell apart, I think, on both offense and defensive lines. We didn't hold strong. We put our quarterback at the time, Andy Dalton, up on a lot of stress before that bad hit he took, and then we brought in Ben DiNucci, and he was up on a lot of stress. And once again, our defensive lines did not play well. They were gashed. I mean, they let a young Antonio Gibson come in who was probably averaging about 70, 80 yards a game, and he comes up with a couple of touchdowns, 126-plus yards, and that's not right. I mean, we have to play better. We have to get our heads up, get our minds right, refocus, and make this thing kind of an open competition.
Isaiah? We don't even have any words.
We just got just slapped in the face by a team out of Washington called the football team. And there was no portion of this game where you felt good about, hey, guess what? We're going to build off of this. We're going to go into the next week, and we're going to take what we did today, and we're going to keep growing it. Offensive line, terrible. Defensive line, terrible. Linebackers, terrible. Secondary, terrible. Receivers drop balls. This is bad all the way around. I don't have anything really positive to say, but we're going to dig into it.
Well, I don't think there's any way you can really sugarcoat it by any means. And even if we were to try and sugarcoat it, we wouldn't be doing the Cowboys any disjustice or any justice at this point, because it wasn't pretty. And it really started in the beginning, and it started with a couple turnovers, or with the turnover early. They were already down 22-3. They had an opportunity to score a couple times. They let it slip. But if you had to point one thing out with this Cowboys loss, what would it be, Isaiah?
The line of scrimmage. I want to say the line of scrimmage as we talk about football talk, but as we talk about, like, as a man, right? As a man, as a competitor, where's the fight? There's absolutely no fight. There's zero fight. I mean, these guys are out here getting pushed around. The one time I did see somebody with some fight was Diggs, and then he talked a little bit of mess to McLaughlin, and then next thing you know, he got scored on. So that's the only fight that I saw. Other than that, even when Andy Dalton got knocked out, where was his backup? Where was his teammates? Where were his brothers at that want to come and say that was a dirty play, right? And I don't care. You don't have to fight. You don't have to get a penalty, but somebody needs to be there and some sense of accountability to act as if you guys even care. There is no sense of care right now.
I kind of smile and I kind of laugh. I've been there. Yeah. I've been there. I've been on the 3-13. I've been on the 1-15, and you're looking around. And you're waiting on the next guy to make the play. Mm-hmm. The play has to be made by you, an individual player, somebody that said, I've had enough. I have to play better. I have to do better. And I have to lead these guys. But there's no one there. Mm-hmm. You look at veteran guys that have been in the league for a lot of years, the Everson Griffins, the Dante Repos, even Cooper. You've been there a long time. And I'm not saying you have to cuss out a guy or say something negative to him, but somebody has to get a spark of energy of going in the right direction, and there's no one. There is no one. Do not let this thing die because Dak is not there. Yeah, someone has to step up.
That's in my eyes, that's an excuse, right? To look around and say, oh, Dak, our leader, is gone. Oh, my goodness, what are we going to do now? you have to step up and play, make a play. To your point, right? You can't look around and wait for somebody else to make a play. Figure it out. I've been on some terrible teams in the past as well, right? Most of the time in college, I was pretty spoiled in the league. But in college, things aren't going good. Guess what? I'm taking it upon myself to go out there and make a play. Forget what everybody else is doing. I'm going to be the spark.
Well, in the past, the scapegoat has been the defense. The offense didn't get off the ground at all today either. 397 yards allowed, only 142 total offensively for the Cowboys. When we come back here on Cowboys OT, we'll hear what Mike McCarthy had to say and his explanation for the 25-3 loss in Washington. The Cowboys fall to 2-5 on the 2020 season following a 25-3 loss. Mike McCarthy spoke after the game. Here's what he had to say at the podium.
Okay, disappointing loss, disappointing division loss. I've stood in front of this camera too many times this year and spoke about the basics that we just haven't put together yet. I'll just start with the turnovers. Obviously, they impacted the first half with the field position, and we didn't handle the adversity of it. The points off of the turnovers, and really didn't get the run game going as we had planned, and then with that they ran the ball too well against us. So not a very good day. The unfortunate injury there to Andy obviously shifted us in a different direction offensively, but it's not what we're looking for. We need to be much better, and we're running out of time. I'll take your questions.
Mike, is there a sense of frustration, or how do you find a sense of frustration and hopelessness when all of these games seem to unfold the exact same way after the points you continually stress?
I would say frustration, clearly, no doubt about it. I wouldn't say hopeless, because that wouldn't reflect the men in the locker room. But frankly, talked to them at halftime about the here we go again mode on the sidelines, and we got to move past that. That's part of making progress throughout the season. We need to learn from our mistakes. We can't keep letting our mistakes holding us down and holding us back, because we obviously have made similar mistakes in different forms and fashions. But until we get the only one that's going to pull us out of the hole is us as a football team. So we got to be able to keep playing, playing to win, playing. Not to make a mistake. I felt like I saw some of that today. I'll obviously take a hard look at the video. It's part of the evaluation, but we're not cutting it loose. We look like we're holding back at certain points. So we got to execute better, obviously, and that's not. We knew that we needed to play the game a certain way today, and we did not get that done.
Just quickly on Dalton, how is he doing? And when he traveled home with the team, and that was just a nasty hit.
I have not been able to visit with the training staff yet on exactly Andy's situation. I saw Andy briefly in the equipment room. He's up and dressed, so I really don't have any update for you.
After the play, it seemed like it was a clearly dirty hit, and none of your players reacted in an angry fashion to take up for Andy. I know no one condones violence, but shouldn't someone have gotten Boston's face?
Yeah, it was definitely a hit that caused a disqualification. But yeah, we speak all the time about playing for one another, protecting one another. So yeah, definitely it was probably not the response that you would expect.
And you guys just talked about the passion, the pride that you play for whenever you have the star on the side of your helmet, especially after a hit like that was blatantly dirty, that wasn't something that you want to see in an NFL game, and especially if it results in injury. What does it say about your football team, the fact that there wasn't a response and even your head coach wanted one? It
states clearly that you're just simply showing up and just doing your job. Right, there's just football is your job. And I know from the outside, everybody's like, oh, these guys get paid good money to show up and do what they're supposed to do, execute their plays. But it's so much more than that, right, Nate? It's so much more than that. I mean, these are your brothers. Literally, these are your brothers. I don't care. They don't look like me. You didn't grow up like me. We didn't grow up in the same household, but you are my brother in arms, right? It's no different than I alluded to, like the guys of 300, right? We're going to war together. Every time you step on that field, it's war. You saw the hit on Andy Dalton. That is war. This is a violent game. And when somebody comes in and attacks one of your family members, guess what? You're going to have to deal with a lot more than just that individual. And you didn't see that. You didn't see that reaction. And it's disappointing. It's discouraging because it lets you know these guys are not tight-knit. They are not a family.
What you have to do is the game have to change from that point. We talk about energy, and there's always certain types of energy. It's negative and it's positive. That was negative energy. Should have brought positive energy. You should have saw the defense playing a little bit more crisper. You should have been seeing guys on the offensive line finishing blocks a little bit better. It didn't bring that. Where's the passion? That's what Isaiah's saying. Where's your passion? That's what your head coach is saying. Where's the passion? Where's the love to play this game? We all have played this game. And you know what? We've been on bad teams, but it still was a passion there that drove us ahead.
There has to be a certain level of protection, especially over a quarterback, that you would have to allow and have to show as a team, and they didn't necessarily show that today. They also didn't have a ton of success on the offensive side of the football, held just to 2.5 yards per play. We talk about the offensive side when we return with more Cowboys OT next. (25-3), the Cowboys fall on the road against the Washington football team. Just 12 first downs. You look at the rushing yards, you look at the passing yards. Nothing good on this full-screen graphic, to say the least, here on Cowboys OT. The Cowboys really just shut down from the get-go. Defensively, the defensive line for Washington had their way at the line of scrimmage. The offensive line did not have their best day, to say the least, in a patchwork way. But Kyle Youmans, Newton and Isaiah Stanback, guys, it starts up front in the trenches. We talked about it earlier, but at some point you have to find a way to get your playmakers the ball, and it seemed like that didn't happen all day long.
Offensive line came out, man, and nothing good happened. I mean, you get the ball on your one because your defense stood tall, and you didn't make anything happen. They have 5 first-round picks. That is no excuse. We're all grown men. We're all professional football players. But they each took their turn, from Payne to Sweat to Young to the other kids to Ryan Cat. They all took their turns being those elite players. We didn't have a good enough scheme. We didn't give a great enough effort to stop these guys, and they were dominant from the first play on to the end of the game.
Yeah, Nate, you're absolutely correct. I mean, these guys were saying, your turn to make a play. My turn to make a play.
Yeah.
Hell, your turn to make a play. They had their way. We knew this was going to be a big challenge coming into this game, but yeah, I think we all had some kind of hope that they were going to show some form of dignity in some regard to stand up and stand firm. I don't care if you cut block. I don't care if you have a short set and keep these guys at the line of scrimmage. I don't care if you slide to the offensive line. We expected there to be something to resist against this pressure that they were going to bring, because they honestly didn't have to bring that much pressure in order to present problems for us on this side of the ball. It's just discouraging.
Washington had 16 sacks coming into the game. They had 6 total today alone. And then also, not to mention, in the past, whenever the offense has struggled, it's been surrounding the turnovers. Well, they only had 1 turnover today. It did come in a key moment in the second quarter, right before the half, when you had a chance to get back in the football game. However, you just didn't move the ball. No receptions for CeeDee Lamb, none for Michael Gallup, and really neither one of those guys had any success. How did the Cowboys find a way to get their playmakers the ball? Because once again, they didn't do that.
Yeah, I think they were doing a good job of getting the ball to them. They didn't bring the ball in, right? So there were some drops. And when you're a quarterback who's stepping in a replacement role, and you're trying to gain the confidence of your teammates, trying to gain the respect of your teammates, you have an offensive line that's not that stout. They were doing a good job of having short sets, right? And we talked about in the pregame, 3-step drops, get the ball out. They were doing that, but guess what? When they did it and they got it to them, drop ball. That is very discouraging to an offense, to a quarterback who's trying to gain that respect. And you could see that letdown on Andy Dalton's face as these drops were happening. He was like, come on, like we have to have this. We have to move these chains. You know, we're not doing anything positive on offense. And when we do have opportunity, we're not taking advantage of it.
CeeDee Lamb was our guy.
Yeah.
Week in and week out that we could depend on. Late in the game, it was Michael Gallup. This game here was only Cooper.
Yep.
My man had 5 targets. He dropped 4 of them. I'm talking about CeeDee Lamb, a guy that's been killing the third down back. And Michael Gallup late in the game. It started last week with the drop of the touchdown, and it continued on this week here. Somehow, some way, guys got to find their mojo back and get that groove and that love for the game back, because I'm going to keep going that word. Where's the passion? Yep. Where's the I'm going to be the guy to make the play? It's so many opportunities for our offense for guys to make plays. You don't have to force it. It'll come to you, man, because you're going to get opportunities. CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Cooper, you playing okay. Schultz, we got to find a way to get him going. So it's there. Make the plays. Quit looking around. Yep. Quit looking around. Our quarterback get knocked out. Everybody looking around. The trainers did more than you, but y'all did, my friend. Yep. Come on, quit looking around. Make the play.
Dalton Schultz and Amari Cooper, the only 2 receivers that had a crooked number in the reception category. And then you look at CeeDee Lamb. This was the first game he was just shut down completely. He was the only receiver in NFL history to have 6 games to start the career with at least 5 receptions. You mentioned 5 targets, no receptions, and CeeDee Lamb just looked like he was a rookie for the first time in his rookie season. And whenever we come back here, we're going to talk about the replacement for Andy Dalton, Ben DiNucci, in his first NFL game. We'll hear from him when we come back on Cowboys OT. We got to see an NFL debut of Ben DiNucci, the rookie quarterback, 7th rounder out of James Madison. This is what he had to say following his first game.
Ben, can you just start by just how it unfolded, you going in there, and just your thoughts and emotions of going in for the first time, and the play that happened that put you in the game?
Yeah, I think you guys saw it. Andy went for a scramble there on 3rd down, and was in the process of sliding, and I think it was their middle linebacker went in and took a shot late as he was going down. So very unfortunate that had to happen for me to get in the game, but no time for me to get nervous or any of that. Put my helmet on and started warming up, and my job, if I'm in there, is to do the same thing that Andy or Dak or whoever else is in there. So no time to waste. Just had to try to pick up where they left off.
Can you start with those first 2 plays? Again, the pitch on the backfield, and then finding Cooper down on the second one. Just your start there.
Yeah, first one was a bad pitch by me. Ball's a little wet. Not going to stand up here and make excuses, but yeah, first one pitch was a little bad, and the one I hit to Coop there on the sideline. They were playing cover 2, and just kind of hit a hole shot in there to him. So heck of a play by him. Got it started with a big gain, and that was good momentum for us. It was unfortunate that we weren't able to put points on board the rest of the day.
You got a series of work, I believe, in the Arizona game. You didn't have any preseason stuff. What have you noticed here about the speed of the game here in your first 2 times you've been on the field?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is guys are just bigger than what I'm used to. Coming from James Madison and FCS school, you don't see guys like Chase Young every day. But the bottom line is football, and it's the same game that I've been playing since I've been in 7th grade. So I couldn't do anything else except go out there with a smile, and I got in the huddle and said, let's go, let's have some fun. We got nothing to lose. It's raining. There's no one in the stands. Let's try to create our own energy here and try to find some positives from this day and go put points on the board.
Ben, on the note of what you just said, you clearly went in with a positive attitude, but raining, no fans, as a rookie, 2 quarterbacks down. I mean, how different is this from what you imagined from your first, I guess, longer-term experience in the NFL? Yeah,
I think if you would have told me, a year ago that this is where I was going to be in a year, I think I would say no way. You'd have to pinch me. But here we are. It's 2020. No one really knows what to expect. The next day, let alone a week down the road. So here we are. This team drafted me for a reason, and Coach McCarthy brought me here for a reason. So if my number's called in the future, I'm going to make sure that I do everything I can to keep the show on the road and make sure that the other guys in the locker room got as much faith in me out there as number 4, number 14.
Ben said it himself. The Cowboys drafted him for a reason in the 7th round of April's 2020 NFL Draft, and one of those reasons for things just like this. Andy Dalton wasn't in the fold yet, and he may not be in the fold in the years moving forward. Ben DiNucci might be your backup quarterback. Got a chance to see him for the first time. What'd you guys think?
He was overwhelmed. I mean, he did what he could with what he was given. I think he came into the game and you could see the nervous jitters of the pitch. It's probably not the best call to give him on his first play in the NFL. But, he had a little bad pitch, but he snapped out of it, right? He had a short memory. He came back. He threw a really tough ball, as you saw him mention in the cover 2, what we call a honey hole between the cornerback and the high safety. There's a little hole right there, about a 5-yard gap that you really have to drive the ball in there. And it takes a lot of cojones as a quarterback to make that throw. He made that throw effortlessly without any thought or process behind it. So I think he'll be okay. He needs a lot of reps, right, to catch up. But all the other plays that he faced, I mean, it was more the same of what we saw from the start of the game.
So he had 3 attempts. He had 2 completions. That's great. I hope we don't have to see this kid anymore. I hope that Andy Dalton come back and we play better as an offensive line, keep him healthy, protect him, and let Ben, gather some more experience from watching the speed of the game. That way we won't have to look at Chase Young and those 6'5", 285, 60-pound men.
Yeah, and whenever you talk about specifically what DiNucci was faced up against when he entered the ball game, I mean, you have Chase Young. He said it himself, coming from James Madison, an FCS level where you're playing in Toyota Stadium down the street. You're not seeing Ohio State's Chase Young coming off the edge. But I like the way that he did settle in. And he made a really good throw, got his first completion in the NFL. And like you said, you may get to see some snaps and some reps because Andy Dalton did officially enter concussion protocol. He's out for at least a couple of days this week. So Ben DiNucci will get those starting reps. Garrett Gilbert, who they brought in a couple weeks ago following the Dak Prescott injuries, now into the fold as well. So I think overall you're going to see a couple different quarterbacks. Washington's a team that's seen a couple quarterbacks this year, but you got to find a way to get some production on the offensive side of the football, and they didn't do a whole lot of that this week. So when we come back, we're going to look to the defensive side of the football and hear more post-game reaction following the 25-3 loss to Washington.
Issue. I think we've been communicating well. I think everybody just needs to do their job in every single play. I think it comes down to that. Just focusing in, relaxing, and doing your job every play.
Very frustrated Leighton Vander Esch following the 25-3 loss on the road against the Washington football team. Welcome back in to Cowboys OT. Kyle Youmans, Newton, Isaiah Stanback. And guys, it was frustrating for the Cowboys overall. Almost 400 yards given up defensively. Again, that front seven struggled to stop the run. 120-plus yards for Washington in terms of running the football. And you also had a rookie running back in Antonio Gibson who ran the ball really, really well. But what do you got to do to stop the run at this point whenever you're going up against the worst team in the NFL statistically on the ground and you still give up these kinds of numbers?
You got to want to stop it. You have to want to stop it. I feel so bad for these coaches in this scouting department because they went out and they got the guys they thought they needed. They really did. They went out and they got the guys. On paper, they look good, right? On paper, we got Poe. On paper, we got Griffin, right? On paper, we got Crawford and all these guys. We got Alden Smith and D. Law, and we got the best defensive line in the league. And then they play. And it's like, where'd you go? Right? Where'd you go? These guys are getting blown off the ball. You mentioned it, right? Gibson went out there and had an All-American day in the NFL, right? Then you bring in McKessick. He's running all over the place, right? Then you got Barber coming in. It really didn't matter. It very much so felt like the what game was it where everybody had an opportunity? The Cleveland game, right? Yeah. Cleveland game, right? First string, second string, third string. It doesn't matter who comes in. These offensive lines are moving our D-line off the ball, and our second level linebackers aren't doing much about it either.
And they can't. Linebackers, and I'll explain to you, linebackers like to come downhill or they like to just, run lateral downhill. Well, these guys running over a hump. And this hump is called Dontari Poe. This hump is called Antoine Woods, Crawford, whoever. Hampton is trying to bring a little bit of heat. And if your defensive line is not filling gaps and eating up blocks, your linebackers are just a waste. So until they fill the gaps, play on the other side of the line of scrimmage, I'm talking about your front interior guys, until they either maintain the line of scrimmage or push guys back, you're going to have a frustrated Leighton Vander Esch, Joe Thomas, Jalen Smith, and whoever else. You can bring Sean Lee and put him in there, and he can diagnose plays with the best of them. But you can't get to him unless that front four, especially those main three guys in the front that rotate, if they're not pushing things back, you're going to have this, where average backs come in and have all-star days.
Well, and to combine both of your points, Isaiah mentioned the reason you brought in some bigger bodies in the middle of that defensive line is because that's the key to your car defensively. It allows everything else to open up. This is a team in Washington that was supposed to turn the football over, known to give it up and known to cough it up to an opposing defense. They didn't turn it over a single time. And you talk about points allowed. Sure, you're not in the 30s for the first time this season, really. First time since week 1 against L.A., but it's not really a win for you defensively. You just didn't stop the run. You still didn't have a ton of success in the pass rush. Both Everson Griffin and DeMarcus Lawrence had decent games where they both ended up with a sack. But overall, just disappointing, Nate.
Yeah, as you see on the film there, our linebackers are running around guys, running parallel with guys. And then when that happens, you know, you can't make a tackle. And big things like here, a blown coverage. Nice tackle. A little too late. If you'd have been there earlier, you could have broke up the play. Right here, right up the middle. Where's your down lineman? I mean, Leighton didn't know which way to go, which hole to take because it was 3 of them. So you can't make a decisive decision because guys were not sharing their lanes and not eat up blocks.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it in past weeks too in terms of what our linebackers want to do. As you mentioned, they want to play downhill, and as you keep seeing on this film, is a lot of misdirection. Right? They kept using McKessick to go across and really stretch this field out. Right? They kept making our linebackers bump out, kept making them lose their assignments, and then they just kept opening up a gaping hole because no team that we faced so far really respects our interior defensive linemen, and that's a shame.
What did you think about the secondary overall? You look at Kyle Allen, 15 of 25, 194 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns. Second week in a row where the quarterback just hasn't had to do much.
Yeah, he only has to throw the ball 25 times. You know what I'm saying? He only had to go, the tight ends, our linebackers can't cover. Let's just call a spade a spade. Our linebackers can't cover. You saw that by him going to his tight ends repeatedly in man-to-man coverage where he just said, I'm throwing it up. My guy's better than your guy. Try to defend it if you can. And then we go to our secondary, right? Very base defenses. And Diggs, he's gotten eaten up once again with these man-to-man coverages against this team's number 1, even though there wasn't a number 1 like Julio or some of the Odell, some of these guys. But he showed up and let those guys know, who he was, and here we go, 2 touchdowns later.
Saw the frustration, especially on the Trayvon Diggs and the blown coverage in the back. There was a little hand fighting early on, and then he got blown by Terry McLaurin, and it did not look pretty. On the defensive line side, Everson Griffin, I mentioned it, he had a sack today. We'll hear from him when we return after the break on Cowboys OT. Back here with more Cowboys OT rolling on from the Star in Frisco. Let's go out to Washington and hear from Amari Cooper, who had 80 yards on the day.
Mike said that Mike McCarthy said that Thursday's practice was a really good practice. He liked the spirit, the energy you guys had, but he wants it to translate the Sunday. How come it's not translating from what you're seeing?
That's a very good question. The first thing I can think of, the other team practices too. We don't know how their practice went, but I don't know. I want the same thing for our ball club, and I agree. We did have a great practice on Thursday, and it needs to translate to the game. But one thing I know for certain, we're going to keep going out there, practicing good, and time will tell if it translates. Hopefully it does.
Amari, what's the level of surprise when you guys work on correcting these things all week and it doesn't pan out again?
I mean, obviously you want to practice good and you want it to translate to the field, and it's very disappointing when it doesn't, because we put our all into this. This is our craft. This is our livelihood, and it's just disappointing when it doesn't. So as far as it being surprising. Yeah, I would say it's pretty surprising too when it doesn't happen, because you don't go out there and practice and say and even think that it won't translate. So when it doesn't, yeah, it's a bit surprising.
Amari, you were right there when Andy got here. What was going through your mind? What did you see on the play? And I mean, he got ejected, but would you consider that a dirty hit?
Man, yeah, I would, to be honest, because he was sliding and it was obvious, and that player could have easily avoided doing what he did.
Amari, Coach McCarthy mentioned that your teammates' response to Andy getting hit wasn't necessarily what you would expect, particularly on going after Boston. I mean, how do you respond to that? Do you feel like they'll be doing what you responded to?
I'm sorry, you kind of broke up. What did you say?
Coach McCarthy mentioned that the rest of your response wasn't necessarily what you would have expected after Andy got hit in terms of no one getting upset with the Boston who had delivered the hit. I mean, what do you think is the right way to respond after your teammate goes down?
I don't know.
What are the emotions like after you lose two quarterbacks in 3 weeks?
Okay, y'all kind of breaking up.
What are the emotions like after you lose two quarterbacks in 4 states?
It's disappointing. Obviously it's a sad thing when your teammates go down and get hurt because, you want to be healthy throughout the duration of the season. And, everybody who's played football has been hurt before, and we all know how emotional it can be. And so, yeah, of course, we feel for Andy and Dak. Yeah, and it's a part of it. Say it again.
In that vein, Amari, how much would you say this team misses Dak, both what he does on the field and off the field right now?
Yeah, we miss him a lot. He's a very important part of this team, both as a player with his play on the field and as a leader with his leadership style on and off the field. So we miss him a lot. But again, it's a part of the game for players to get hurt or injured. And we just have to keep fighting.
This is a wide receiving core that's been tabbed as the strength of the team for the Cowboys. Well, tonight against the Washington football team, Amari Cooper, the only one with a reception out of the quote-unquote big three amongst the Cowboys wide receivers, 7 receptions, 80 yards. Both Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb shut down. Now, this is a very stout Washington secondary, but not one that should shut down receivers of that caliber.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that the receivers were necessarily shut down by the defensive secondary. I think it was really one up front, but the defensive line presence and our offensive line's inability to give our guys time to throw the ball. This was supposed to be the week after watching film all leading up to this point that these guys were going to win. They have one of their better games because this team wasn't going to blitz a lot. They were going to play a lot of too high safety coverage. There are going to be plenty of gaps where these guys will find holes in this defense to catch the rock. And it just didn't work out that way. When the balls did come their way, obviously, to CeeDee Lamb, unfortunately, he played like the rookie that we haven't seen this year.
Yes, sir. I mean, Landon Collins went out. He went out early in the game, so that gave you a spot to attack as far as the safeties with our tight ends and running backs. That did not happen. And, of course, CeeDee Lamb was not the CeeDee Lamb that we know. Michael Gallup was not the Michael Gallup that we know because these guys just don't drop balls.
Yeah.
If you catch the balls, you have enough balls on this offense that if you catch the balls, you're being competitive and you're giving yourself a chance. And you are the strength. So, gather yourselves, come back this week, a little more passion, a little more focus, and catch the ball.
Really season lows across the board for this Cowboys offense, especially in the passing game and with those core wide receivers as well. When we come back here on Cowboys OT, we'll wrap things up here from the Star and get you ready for Week 8 of the NFL season right after this. 25-3 the final score as the Cowboys fall to the football team in Washington. 25-3 was the score, but it was really worse numbers-wise all the way down for the Cowboys in this one. Just 142 total yards compared to almost 400 for Washington. The turnovers weren't the factor in this one. The defense didn't play well. The offense didn't play well. So, gentlemen, as we wrap things up here on Cowboys OT, I ask you, where do you start going into Week 8 of the season, Philadelphia on the road this week?
Once you determine who your quarterback's going to be, you have to stop with the turnovers. You have to find a way to get time of possession to help your defense, and then you can start making some things happen. But you can't, no more turnovers. You have to stop. Every week is a turnover. It's a turnover, and it ruins the whole game for you.
I would say that the challenge is upon Coach McCarthy this week. I think it's really on him to go out there and challenge the character and challenge the mindset of this team. I think that he really needs to go in there and really ask these guys, ask these men, who are you? Who are you? Who do you represent? Who are you playing for? Because right now it doesn't appear like you're playing for anybody aside from a check.
Whenever you talk about finding that leadership, of course it's going to start with the coaching staff. And I think right now that is where you need to show that you're finding that passion, you're finding that fight. But where does it start from a player standpoint? Who on this roster is going to step up this week, or at least needs to step up this week, Nate? Every
one of them. At individual times, each player needs to do his job and to make that play. I talked about it earlier. Quit looking around. You know, when the ball comes to you, catch it. When it's time to make that critical run, make it. When it's time to make that critical block to make sure this play is sprung in the open, make it. When it's time to go forward as a defensive line, pass versus pass, or run, go forward, son. Don't continue to get knocked back. At each individual time, you will be asked to make a play as a player. Make the play.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Every person has a responsibility on every play. If you're on the field, you have a job to do. You have a job to do not only because that's your assignment, but you have a job to do because it fits within the scheme of everybody else. And if you fail to do your job, if you fail to execute your assignment, it affects everybody in a negative way.
Well, the Cowboys, for the first time, at least what seems like a while, not going to be in first place in the NFC East moving into Week 8 of the season. They've got Philadelphia coming up this week. Sunday Night Football is supposed to be, or it's slated to be on Sunday Night Football. I don't know if there's any flex problems with that just yet coming around the corner for the Cowboys, but overall, it's going to be a tough week for really Mike McCarthy and everybody involved. There's going to be some tough decisions to make in terms of personnel back and forth, and something that I think the Cowboys have to address on a multitude of occasions following the 25-3 loss to Washington on the road in Landover, Maryland. That's going to do it here for us here on Cowboys OT. Make sure and stay up to date for everything Dallas Cowboys on DallasCowboys.com throughout the week. But for Isaiah Stanback, Nate Newton, and our entire hard-working crew, I'm Kyle Youmans saying so long. We'll see you next week here on Cowboys OT.